Hello everybody, this is Ghost Hunter 385. I'm back with more StarCraft and more commentary for everybody. Oh, that's good. New allies. New allies. Always nice. Wait. Well, the question here you have to ask is... Excuse me for a second there. The question you have to ask here is not so much is that are these people completely wackadoodle, or is it that their sudden increase in psionic ability that much effective on the brain? Now, some people might sit there and say, what is that? That's ludicrous. Well, here's the thing. In science fiction, you following me, folks? In science fiction, because we can't wholly prove with our modern science about whether psychic power is real or not, but in science fiction, when you mess with the brain in certain capacities, as it turns out, you don't know what happens to the brain. And because we don't know what happens when you mess with certain parts of the brain, you don't know what could happen. I mean, in Firefly, they cut certain parts of River Tam's brain, and all of a sudden, she had psychic powers when she normally didn't. So, in that thought process, we have to ask this reasonable question. If you mess with the human brain too much, what happens? I mean, it's just, we don't know. I mean, normally, if your brain's affected by anything, that's game over. But if you could stimulate certain parts of the human brain in just the right way with chemicals and other things, who knows what would happen? And this is the reason why... Oh, I don't have anything to do here. To the armory. Tosh character, Spectre gear, cool. Not brainwashing. Not brainwashing. Recruit volunteers to become Spectres, that's the deal. He works them so hard till they won't. Yeah. No brainwashing involved. Not to mention, if you're going to have powers that are beyond what you normally should have, running hard and being responsible for them, gee, that sounds like a line from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. Dominion. Yeah. But power comes responsibility. If you can't, oh, yes, I will be taking that. Permanently cloaked specters. Save psionic leash. No. Alright, we're done here. But, you're not chasing your tail, Jim. You're just spiraling. And there's a difference between chasing your tail and spiraling. Your sense of justice isn't gone yet, Jim. The only thing that's gone from you is the willingness to accept that it's still there, if you know what I mean. But back on to what I was talking about. Just, think about it for a second. What was it? The 1950-40s style lobotomy. It's basically where they took a hot metal, what was it, it was like a giant needle, and they would take that needle, go through the eye, and just start tapping spots on your brain, just to see what would happen. And more than likely, the results weren't that great. So, all I'm going to sit here and say is, we don't exactly know what happens if you stimulate the brain in the right ways, or you go out of way to create more neural pathways in the brain and what that would do. It's all, at this point, it's conjecture and science fiction. But, you know, it's pretty interesting when you think about it what can be done to the human brain in these theoretical settings. It's just, we don't know what the real result would ever be. Oh, there's Tychus. It's like that scene from in the first Guardians of the Galaxy where Rocket's just there doing his thing, and then Gamora tosses him that weird space gun, and he's like, "Oh, yes," and just starts lighting it up. And let's see, Dominion Base 1, 2, and 3. Ah, yes. Chaos. Thought you'd never ask. Alright, in the spirit of this mission, today's topic is media misinformation. Now, some people might sit here and say, you know, what do you mean media misinformation? And my answer to that is straightforward and simple. The media, especially in not especially in modern times, I'll go through at least one or two historical examples, but the media has been heavily slanting its views towards its specific political party. I'm not going to name parties here because depending on who you are and what you believe, it varies. Let's see, base 2 layout, base 3 layout. But I have more problems dealing with base 1 and those damn flyers, so let's go there. Heavy duty. But anyway, now some people might sit here and say the media doesn't lie or they don't have the full details. Okay, just as an example of this, who here remembers the Covington kids, the private Catholic school, who said that the kids were, Nick Sandman was the new face of, racism, as he smiled at this Native American man who was beating a drum in his face, who could have whacked the poor kid with said drum. Nobody really gave a care. Nobody gave a care until it came out that those black Hebrew Israelites were sitting there and shouting some of the nastiest things you ever heard. If you don't believe me, go check out the full video. It was on YouTube. Well, it was on YouTube. I don't know if it got taken off or not. But it was on YouTube, more or less, until it was... I don't know if it got taken down or not, but the full video shows that the only thing that the kid was guilty of was just sitting there smiling at the man because he was trying to defuse the situation. And the media smeared him so hard that his family had to move from their house because his family literally had protesters showing up at his house. And you want to know what else is sad? They actually had to sit there and sue CNN, CBS, all of those news stations for slander because when they did the quote-unquote story, guess what? The video was online. They could have easily fact-checked it, and they didn't. And guess what? These major media companies ended up getting sued because of that. This is misinformation, folks. Very big misinformation. You know, that's one example of media misinformation right there. The Sandman case. Now, some people also like to sit there and say, okay, well, so what? I'm not going to sit here and talk about the ramifications, but we need to understand as people that if we don't check our biases and actually wait for the full story, guess who ends up looking like the bigger a-hole here? It's not the person who gets lied about. It's the people who end up believing the lies because they go out of their way to make themselves even look worse. Now, am I sitting here saying it's right? Heck no, I'm not. But it happens, and it's sad. I mean, you don't even hear about the journalists being punished. And the only thing you hear is how the families of what the families here of the people who were lied about, they sat there and had to deal with all the negative stuff about it. Does anybody care that that Nick Sandman's family had to move and he nearly had to trade schools because of what happened to him? And the fact that he had to sue all of these media companies for lying.
We're almost out of time. So are these guys.
Does nobody care how wrong that is when you really, really think about it? Think about it. I mean, seriously, think about it for a minute, folks. It took a lawsuit to deal with the aspects of the media that refused to tell the truth, or at least be halfway honest with themselves. It took a lawsuit to make that happen. How wrong is that? Seriously, that is so wrong. I mean, I understand freedom of the press, freedom of the speech, but when does freedom of the press get abused here, folks? I mean, you don't hear about people going outside of news stations protesting the fact that these people lied. Knowingly lied about what? At the time, maybe a 14-year-old kid? This is wrong. Very wrong. Yet, it's all swept under the rug now. Because, oh, guess what? Why? Because it makes the media look bad. You know, if you're gonna put your foot in your mouth, at least keep it in there and be honest and say, we effed up. Heavy artillery Walker. Basically, a smaller Odin. And let's get building. But in any case, you know, that's the Nick Sandman case. Now, let's talk about during Barack Obama. What do you mean about Barack Obama? Okay, get this. When Barack Hussein Obama was our sitting president, he can't be president anymore because he can only serve 2 terms. When he was president, nobody sat there and talked about the stuff that was going on during his administration. Now, was it let out that he was having fights with the Clintons? Yeah. That was let out because it was good publicity. Oh, Obama is fighting the corrupt Clintons. Look at this, look at that. You know, it's good posturing for them, especially with those who don't like the Clintons. So, you know, I don't blame him for that. But on the flip side of that, you know, they barely talk about what happened with Fast and Furious. Now, some people might sit there and say, what do you mean, the movie? No. Operation Fast and Furious was an undercover sting led by the FBI and maybe the ATF. But that was an undercover sting to deal with, to help, to get illegal guns from the cartels and to arrest cartel members. Nobody sits here and talks about how, thanks to President Obama, that more or less what happened was that President Obama, when he took control of the situation... Oh, here's the secret mission, folks. But President Obama sat there and rearranged how... Well, not him, but he gave out directives, because I don't think he would have personally done that. But it was that he set out new directives, and the Fast and Furious case was an example of the change of directives. And the change in directives was hit so bad that all the support that was going for Fast and Furious was let go. And it broke the news when he was president because he got, what was it, like 2 FBI agents and 1 ATF agent killed because of that. Barely any news coverage because it was our savior, President Barack Obama. He's gonna heal the country. He only made things worse. By a lot of opinions, he only made things worse. Now, I can sit here and talk about other things that happened with President Obama's when it was his tenure as president. I mean, I could sit here and talk about how he called a man racist when the situation was barely racist at all. Nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. Oh, Ghost Hunter, you're just bringing up old things of the past. Well, here's the thing. What was that quote? If you don't learn from history's mistakes, you're bound to repeat them. As in, if we don't sit here and learn from the mistakes of the past, we don't fix them. I mean, come on, think about it for a darn minute. We have literally sat there and just let this stuff happen. This is not okay, folks. This is actually very bad. So we have the Covington case. Then we have what happened with Operation Fast and Furious. How about we talk about blame Bush for a minute here? President George W. Bush is not my favorite president. Not by a long shot. But there was one thing that nobody talks about that... Well, it's not that nobody talks about it, it's just that they don't care to talk about it. What do you mean, Ghost Hunter? I was in 4th grade when those planes flew into the Twin Towers. And you want to know the thing that I thought was very interesting at the time that I even asked my parents about? Why is everybody blaming the president for everything? Oh, it's because... My mother's answer? Oh, it's because he's the president and he's supposed to be responsible for it. What did my dad say? Well, he is the commander-in-chief and supposed to protect our country. Yes. But you can only do so much with the information you have on hand. Now, some people might sit there and say, blame Bush, what's that? It was the notion that everything was George W. Bush's fault. Hurricane Katrina happened. And federal aid didn't come quick enough to help with what was going on in New Orleans. Now Bush was blamed for it. Well, it was his fault. He didn't do it. Does anyone here pay attention in your basic American government classes for those who were born here in the United States? Did you know that under the Constitution, the federal Constitution of the United States, the federal government cannot impede with what's going on in the states unless the state actually asks for aid. So by that reason and logic, whose fault was it really what happened with Hurricane Katrina? It wasn't President Bush's fault on the technical note. It wasn't even his fault. Whose fault was it? It was the mayor of Louisiana who took, I don't know how many kickbacks from companies like Verizon and a couple others to where he got significant deals for his family, even got some free stuff for it from these people. Nobody talks about it. I can remember being in, maybe 2012 or 2000, it would have been right around 2013, where it was actually reported on the news that he was going to jail for all the bribery he took place during Hurricane Katrina. Short little news clip across who was it? CNN's screen, and then because I used to blame Bush for Hurricane Katrina. I don't anymore. I blame the corrupt politician who allowed what happened there to happen. Because that's it. That's actually the sad truth. It was the corrupt mayor of New Orleans in Louisiana who allowed all that bad stuff to happen to the people of New Orleans. Yet for years and years, everybody blamed President Bush. Everybody blamed Bush when the planes flew in the towers, even though when he was told about it, and the country was actually deemed under attack, his security detail did what it was supposed to, and that was it. They got him onto Air Force One to safety, and it wasn't until the intel community actually pulled its head out of its butt and actually started telling the president what the heck was really going on that anything changed. Nobody talks about it. Nobody cares. Everybody just blames Bush. How is it the president's fault when he can't even get people to tell him the truth? How is he supposed to do anything? President can't act on the federal level, not without Congress approving or a state saying, okay, yes, we want your help. Think about that one for a minute. Hell, even in a movie, it was what movie was it with Bruce Willis? What was it? Live Free or Die Hard? That the hacker guy sat there and they're sitting there watching as the country's, basically going to heck in a handbasket because of how those hackers were shutting down the U.S.'s information grid. That more or less what was going on was that they're basically being and he sits there and says it took FEMA 5 days to get water to the Superdome. Yeah, did they also tell you that by the time FEMA got there, the situation was so bad that FEMA was already overwhelmed by what was going on? Did anybody talk about that at all? No, nobody did. It's sad and it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. But blame Bush? The Covington kid scandal? Fast and Furious? Do I need to keep going on here more? Okay, let's go an example that doesn't involve government scandal here. How about the live reading of the War of the Worlds? From what was it, the 40s or the 50s? I believe it was the 50s, where there was this on-air reading of the War of the Worlds where they were doing the sound effects for it live on the radio, and it was sat there and said that people started tuning in and it caused mass panic, even though during both segments of the radio reading and the sound effects that at the beginning it says that this is a fictional story being told, yet it's still believed nowadays that it really happened. People were freaking out. People were wigging out. But the thing that's actually sad and is barely told is that radio was being widely used after the military got their hands on, after the military released that kind of technology to the public. And who was here for a second, who was the greatest information source for people before talk radio and news radio came out? Take a guess who it was. Newspapers. Or it was gossip spread by word of mouth. So because it was gossip spread by word of mouth, or the newspaper, that's how you got your news sources. And even though newspapers are dying nowadays, it's sad, believe me, there was this idea of discrediting radio back in the day to make the newspaper more to make it more profitable. So it doesn't matter whether it be political or anything of the sort. People have lied on media misinformation. That's another example that happened long before our modern politics ever happened. And this cycle still continues. So let's see. Blame Bush. Not talking about President Obama's scandals. Then we talk about President Trump, which was basically blame Bush on steroids. It was roid rage for President Trump. Oh, you're a Trump supporter? I thought he did his best he could. To be perfectly honest. Still not one of my more favorite presidents, but I will say that the man did try to have an honest effort in certain cases. Now, am I going to sit here and lambast everybody for their opinions? No. That's pointless. That's stupid. But I am going to sit here and say that these people who are in charge of the media are not being honest with us. That should bug people. Yeah, I don't hear anybody complaining about it too much. I don't hear anybody saying, we should do something about to fix these people. Even I'm of the opinion that lawsuits need to be filed for this stuff. Why is that? Because these people knowingly lied. They knowingly presented information, but the way they framed it was false. Oh, President Donald Trump had a scandalous affair with Stormy Daniels, even though he wasn't president. Think about it. I could sit here and talk about everything that happened with President Donald Trump. You had Russiagate, Stormygate, and the thing that was actually sad was that there was barely any proof for Russiagate. Barely any. It was so bad that it said that CNN, MSNBC, or CBS had a reporter going to Russia and just digging through trash dumpsters looking for proof. Does this not have people saying, what the heck is going on? It's almost like they want this story to be true, so hard and so true that they're willing to do some of the nastiest things to get it. Does this not bother anybody? And then as for the whole Stormy Daniels thing, I think it's fair to say that, there might be a little bit of proof to sit here and say that, he may have done things with Stormy Daniel. There is some evidence to say that. But, from there, it's just one thing after another. Yet this is all being reported on a president that the media did not like. Think about with the current sitting president, with President Joe Biden. They barely talk about how he seems to be extremely fragile. No one gives a darn if you're in the media. Why? Aside from maybe Fox News, that's it. No one talks about it. But if it was Donald Trump as president, oh my goodness, the amount of information they went after. It was almost like, dang. They put so much time, so much money into it, it's like, whew, bro. You can't even believe it. Hell, even Tim Pool was like, really? Alright, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, bang the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.